Hello, everyone. We are here on part 6 for the interview question series. I'm excited about it, and I hope you guys also are. So, let's see what all 10 questions I have in part 6. So, this is my blog, you all know that. So, let's go question one by one. Okay. All right. So, very first question is how could you reserve the IPs in Azure Public and Private if you can? Well, it's a very good question. I have asked this question to so many interviewers, and the answer is yes, we can. We can reserve the IPs. Let's talk about the public IPs. We have public IP prefix if you want to get the range reserved for you. If you don't, if you want the only IPs, then you can create the static public IPs that would be reserved for you. You cannot reserve the dynamic public IP until you assign it to the NIC. Same goes with the private IPs. You need to create a NIC and attach and give it an IP. You cannot have a NIC without IP, a private IP. That's how you can save or reserve the IPs. Now, if you are wondering why we need to reserve it, well, there are situations, there are scenarios where this is something that your customer is look forward to. For example, a migration, they want to reserve few IPs for their certain workloads. They want to reserve few public IPs to open their firewalls for the communication, those kind of stuff. So let's go with the question number 2. What are the different types of load balancers provided by Azure, and talk about their usage as regional and global? That is a very good question. A single question that contains the entire information of the load balancing resources that Azure provides. All right, well, in total, Azure has 5 load balancers, okay? And it is categorized in two, like regional load balancer and the global load balancer. We got 3 regional load balancers like basic, standard, and application gateway. Basic and standard work on the transport layer, L4, and application gateway work on the application layer, that is layer 7. And we got 2 more load balancer which we use for the globally, that is traffic manager, which is a DNS based, and the front door, which is again layer 7. So now the question is a little tricky. This is all about the information regarding the different types of load balancer, but it also says their usage. Okay, so the question is, the interviewer wants to know whether you know that when to use which load balancer. Well, it is more like if there is a non-HTTP or HTTPS traffic and you want a load balancing regionally on layer 4, then of course your choice is basic and standard. And if you want the load balancing on layer 7, that is HTTP or HTTPS, then App Gateway would be your choice. And App Gateway has certain other features as well. We have already covered that part, like WEF, SSL offloading, path-based routing, multi-host, a lot other features as well. And if you talk about global, if you want not necessarily HTTP or HTTPS type of traffic, or you're looking for DNS based load balancing, then Traffic Manager would be your obvious choice. But if you're looking for layer 7 global point of presence, you need front door for that kind of load balancing. So that's how you can define this question, rather giving a lot of stories, just simple point to point. How many IPs are reserved in a private subnet, or how many are usable if your subnet is 10.0.10/24 CIDR range? Well, in total, every subnet, Azure reserves 5 IP addresses. We all know that. Now, which 5 addresses? First 4 and the last one. What is the first IP address? It's always .0. So you need to explain this with the way I'm talking to you right now. .0 is a network address which is reserved. .1 is for default gateway, and .2 and .3 is reserved by Azure to map the Azure DNS IPs to the vNetwork space. And .255 is for network broadcast. Okay, cool. Now the question is usable IPs /24. So in total we have 256 IPs, 5 IPs are reserved, so 251 IPs. The first would be .4 and the last would be 254. Okay, now let's go to another question. Can I replicate the on-prem VMs over a site-to-site VPN to Azure? If no, then why? Well, of course, we cannot. ASR doesn't work on site-to-site. It works over the internet. However, the traffic goes is totally encrypted, compressed, and safe. But no site-to-site. If you want, you can use the ExpressRoute public peering for sure, or Microsoft peering for sure, but no site-to-site. Okay, now it says why. It's because when this replication happens, the traffic reaches the public endpoint of Azure, that is the Azure storage account. That's why. And site to site is not connected to a public endpoint, it is connected to the private one. That's why. It is a good question if it's a why. Now, if I replicate to Azure through ASR, what kind of storage account or managed disk do I need? Well, when you create it, there are only two options, LRS and GRS, locally redundant and GEO. And of course, GRS is always recommended in case of regional outages. You can have your data intact. Now, let's go to another one. Can I exclude specific disks from replication of on-prem machine to Azure through ASR? If yes, then how? Well, if you have done the created the entire structure of the ASR on-prem and the target resources, and you enable the replication. When we enable the replication, we select the what we say credentials. In the same page, we do have the option to select the disk. Everything is selected by default. If you want to exclude any disk, you need to uncheck that box. That's how we can exclude it. So answer is yes. Can I throttle the bandwidth allotted for a replication traffic through ASR? Well, yes, of course we can do it. Otherwise, ASR will drink entire bandwidth. So in some situations, you gotta throttle it, and you can do it from the configuration server. You have this shortcut for Azure Backup. You open it under the once you open it, you find the change properties. From there, you can enable the throttling. Now, how can I access the Azure VM after failover, or what all preparation is needed? Well, it's a not. I don't find it a very tough question. Okay, it is more like a general question, just to check your approach. Or if you have ever worked on the ASR, this question will definitely help the interviewer understand. Because when this happens, when replication, when failover happens, your VM doesn't have a public IP. Okay, and I don't know what kind of NSG you have attached. So there are a few things. Whether you have a site-to-site connectivity already prepared so that you can even access with the help of private IP address of the machine that is failover. But in that case, there are two dependencies like site-to-site and the NSG. So this question actually a little tricky, and it opens a lot of things about your understanding of Azure. Like you need to talk about NSG, you need to talk about public IP address, you need to talk about site-to-site connectivity, and you can also talk about the Azure Bastion if you want to. So that's how we can. Okay. Now, if I'm replicating between two data centers, what happens if my primary data center experienced an unexpected outage? Well, this replication is a continuous block level flow, and if the machines are protected, and continuous data is going on, primary data center is down, you can simply go ahead and fail over to the secondary one and it will start working. You do not need uh, primary data center up and running to do the failover on the secondary one. That happens from the cache storage, we all know that, so that can be done. So what all permissions needed for successful replication and failover through ASR? This is again a tricky question which will reveal a lot about you, whether you have worked upon it or not, whether you have set up the infrastructure or not. Because when you set up the infrastructure, what all things we need to do, what all access we need. Usually, if you have a contributor administrator rights, no need to worry about it. But if you have never given such granular access for this kind of activity, that is okay. You can simply talk about the things that you do. So those rights, so that, for example, rights to create a virtual machine in a selected resource group, rights to create a machine in the selected virtual network, permission to write in a storage account. Because we can customize the rights in RBAC, right? In IAM. So that's how you can apply it. We do have the inbuilt IAM roles as well. So that these are the 10 questions in part 6. I hope you liked it and it would be a great learning experience for you guys. Well, thank you for watching and you have a good day. Bye bye.